and then we're going to spread around the room a little bit and have time for one-on-one individual interviews. So we're here 45 minutes with each of the groups, and hopefully you'll be able to get all you need to report on this great event. So thanks for having us here. We're going to ask questions in the order of the weight class competition here in Penn State. So our first matchup is bout number 2, and it's at 62 kilograms. By the way, these are wireless, and you can pull them out of the holder and just pass it around. I'd like the first microphone to be for the 3 women here, and the second microphone to be for the 2 women over there. Okay, got it? Thank you. It's a lot easier than when we have those long cords on the end of them, so I really appreciate having those wireless ones here. Anyway, we've got an Indiana native who was the first in this weight class to qualify for Final X by winning our 2018 U.S. Open. She's a 3-time age group world medalist, 4-time WCWA college national champion at Campbellsville, Kayla Miracle. So Kayla, you've been to 6 different age group world tournaments and won 3 medals. How's that kind of experience impacted your success here at the senior level?
Just any international experience, no matter what age group, is international experience. So I'm getting to wrestle with some of the toughest girls in the world at all age levels. But then with that, I've not had the success that I've wanted. So I haven't made a senior world team. I came up short last year, getting second to Helen, and then I've never gotten the taste of gold. I've smelt it, I've been right there, I've gotten silver, and I've gotten 2 bronze. And so that just makes me so hungry going into Final X, because this is just the stepping stone to making the world team and then winning that world title.
Thank you, Kayla. You may notice we have 5 athletes here. Our second athlete, who's a California native, is graduating from college and is not able to get here. She was the 2017 World Team member, Mallory Velty, and she qualified here for Final X by winning the Freestyle World Team Challenge Tournament, Rochester, Minnesota. Mallory won 3 WCWA titles at Simon Fraser in Western Canada, and she'll be here on time to wrestle and weigh in tomorrow. But speaking on her behalf is Coach Cleo Lane. Cleo's going to come up here and borrow the microphone at the far end over there. So my question for Cleo. Cleo, what do you feel are the key aspects of Mallory's success as a wrestler? And talk about her preparation, how prepared she is coming into Final X.
Mallory's keys are, she's driven, she works really hard, and she's really humble. I would say she didn't have the success as a kid growing up, but it drove her to keep competing. She has a very competitive spirit, and that helps her throughout coming up in the senior level. I know she got some success last year, and she had a little taste of it, getting to the Worlds, and it's bringing her along.
How's she been looking in training? What are the coaches saying?
Well, she's training in Simon Fraser, so I don't get to see her too much, but we communicate pretty often, and she's just been working on her offense still some more, and fine-tuning a couple things to be prepared for this.
Thank you very much, Coach. Appreciate you representing Mallory here. Match number 3. It'll be 72 kilograms. Our Vermont native, she qualified for Final X by winning the U.S. Open in April, her 4th Open title. 2015 World Team member, 9-time National Team member, Erin Claudio. Erin, after a 2016 year, where you made the finals of the Olympic trials, you moved up in weight, and you also moved back east from where you're from. Could you talk a little bit about how the changes have impacted your wrestling and your quest to continue on for world and Olympic medals?
I think the move back to Vermont was definitely a good move for me. It was a time in my life when it was time for a change, need something different, need something new, and going back to where my roots are, where I came from, definitely was the best choice I made. Being at 72 now, and at 75 the year before, both weights are a lot more appropriate and a better weight class for me instead of being at 63 with these new weigh-ins. I used to be one of the bigger wrestlers at 63. I used to cut a lot of weight, but that's, game changer, different game plan, and I think 72 is a much better weight class for me.
Thanks a lot, Erin. Now your opponent, an Iowa native, reached the Final X by taking the World Team Trials Challenge Tournament in May in Rochester, Minnesota. She's a 4-time age group world team member, 2-time college All-American, Rachel Waters of Oklahoma City University. Rachel, while you've been competing in college, you're also wrestling at the senior level regularly. You're always testing yourself. What do you feel are the reasons for your senior level success this year? And what kind of things do you have to do in order to win in Final X?
I think a lot of my success has actually come from doing both college and senior level stuff at the same time, as well as junior level stuff when I was a little younger. I think just getting out there and wrestling all the time, and I just keep going out there and doing what I do, which is wrestling. I think it just keeps just showing me that I deserve to be out there and I can wrestle out there. And if I just keep wrestling, I seem to feel more confident out there. So.
What do you need to win tomorrow?
Oh, I just need to get to my offense, I think.
Thank you very much. Our 5th match tomorrow night will be at 76 kilograms. We have a Colorado native who qualified for Final X by winning the 2018 U.S. Open. She's a 3-time world champion, 5-time senior world medalist, 2016 Olympian, and the first woman to win junior, university, and senior gold medals for the United States, Adeline Gray. Adeline, after Rio, you took off a season to have some surgery and heal, and you've made some life changes for yourself, including coaching out here in Pennsylvania, which has got to be a new experience for you. So far this season, you've been very successful, and I'd like you to tell us in your mind, what level of wrestling do you feel you've been able to get to this year in comparison to those years when you've been world champion and doing some of your best wrestling?
I think it comes down to just showing up on the mat and making sure that you're confident in what you bring when you shake hands and show up and wrestle. And that's what I've been able to establish, not just once or twice, but consistently throughout the year and throughout my career. So it's just been about showing up at the right time and making sure you get your hand raised at the end of those moments.
Thank you, Adeline. Her opponent, who's an Illinois native, she qualified for Final X by winning the World Team Trials Challenge Tournament. She's a freshman at McKendree University, WCWA All-American, and qualified for the U23 World Team later this summer. Corinne Bullock. My question for you, Corey, is that less than a year ago you were competing in Fargo, right? So,
Right.
At their junior nationals. Tomorrow you're facing Adeline Gray in Final X for a spot on the senior world team. Could you tell us about your crazy year and why you think you've been able to improve so quickly?
I don't think it's been that crazy. It's been difficult and rocky, but at the same time, I feel like most of the young girls at 76 kilos have been my tougher matches, so I think it's pretty open for anybody that's that young to just come in and make it to World Team Trials Finals or Final X.
So who's helped you this year? Athletes, training partners, people that have brought you along as a freshman in college?
Well, I have a few girls on my wrestling team that when I first came in were beating up on me. So, I've improved since then. My coach has been helping me. But most of all, I think most of it is just mental. Just believing in yourself, and that's something that I'm working on.
Thank you very much. At this point, we're going to open up for some media questions. We have a microphone, which Mr. Mark Bader is going to bring around. If you have a question, please raise your hand, tell us who you are, and we'll have whichever individual athlete you'd like to talk to answer that question. So, who's first?
Dan Lobdell, Flow Wrestling. This one's for Kayla. Kayla, you kind of grew up around wrestling, right? And everybody kind of expected you to get here. You made cadet teams and junior teams, as Gary said. How did kind of growing up in this environment prepare you for the big stage you're going to see out there tomorrow?
I've wrestled on all sorts of stages, the world stage, the Fargo stage, so, a crowd doesn't, hinder me. It kind of hypes me up. I love it. I love that feeling. I love the fans. All of it is super awesome. So this, it's just another match. I'm going to go out and I'm going to tune everything else out once I get on the mat, and I'm just going to have fun, let loose and just let it fly.
Next question.
Question for Adeline. You mentioned or talked about it briefly before, but could you go into a little more detail about what's been different now after you had the surgeries and you've been away from a finals appearance in a while? So how has the training the last year or so been different as opposed to in the past?
I don't know how much training I've been doing other than competing. It just feels like I have done so many competitions this year that it's been a lot of just taking care of my body and recovery in between. Obviously, I took the year to rehab from a shoulder and knee surgery and made sure that those were ready before I stepped on the mat, and then felt ready. As I started competing, it just things started clicking and fell into place, and just felt comfortable executing moves and executing kind of some of my goals that were off the mat to focus back into my wrestling. And so it's just kind of been a combination of enjoying some of my crazy travel life that I've kind of made for myself. Had a few roots planted here with Aaron Vandiver at the Wyoming Seminary base, and got to see a different side with a little bit of coaching and some just kind of fresh blood of young girls who are excited about wrestling, and they had a few really young ones who came onto the team who'd never wrestled before, and they were probably the most fun for me just because I had to break things down and got asked questions about why we keep our head up or why we have a lead leg that I never thought about in a sense that other than just to do it. And so to explain some of those things helped me to bring it back to my own wrestling. So that piece of the coaching has been nice, and then just focusing kind of on the lifting and a little bit less wear and tear of that consistent training of on the mat twice a day, every day, and save those for the training camps where I let Terry beat me up a little bit, and then I go home and lick my wounds and mentally recover a little bit, and then go back and start the training cycle over again. And obviously that competing gets wearing sometimes, but we're making sure to monitor that leading up to the big time of World Championships, and I'll be ready and fine-tuned for that moment.
Next question. Up front, please.
This is really for anybody. How does it feel to sort of be an ambassador for the sport of wrestling for women and for high school girls? You see all over the country that more and more interscholastic sports associations are acknowledging having a girls tournament and or girls seasons. So how does it feel to be an ambassador for that?
Erin, why don't you take it first? Come on, you can do it.
Well, it's sometimes it's kind of like, it feels like a Twilight Zone. It doesn't seem real, because I remember when I was growing up and I was a kid and I was looking at Christy Morano and Sally Roberts and all those girls and looking up to them, being like, I want to be there. Patricia Miranda, and not ever thinking that I'd be wrestling that long and I would be making that a difference in some girls' lives too. And I know we've all made that difference for girls. And when you think about it and then you finally meet a girl and they come up to you and they say they've been watching you for so long, or they've seen your matches, it's kind of like a heart-filling moment, because you get so caught up thinking about yourself and your career and your own, what's the next match, what's the next tournament, versus like, wow, I'm really making an impact on the sport. And it's amazing to see how much the sport has grown. And it just keeps growing every year, a little bit more, and it's awesome to see. It's great to be a part of.
Anyone else want to say something? Okay, thank you, Rachel.
Yeah, it's great to see that. It's honestly, I came to my first senior world team trials. I think it popped up on my Facebook memories about 4 years ago. So it's kind of cool to see that I was one of those girls looking up to people, and I wanted to be where I am today, and it just kind of shows that any girl that looks up to us, they can be us. They can really do that, and they can achieve what they want to in wrestling.
Thank you. Next question.
Jim Carlson, Harrisburg, for Adeline. along those lines that you just discussed, you know, a lot of colleges now are adding women's programs. And do you think that part of that might be because of the success of the U.S. women's team? And having said that, then the more women's teams that are added, do you think that success also can help the men's side of the sport and some teams as well?
Yeah, I think Wrestle Like a Girl is behind a big push and initiative behind the high school and colleges, kind of getting some grassroots programs set up, not just for our benefit of having deeper national teams, but also for the education aspect, and how many opportunities are really available to women within the sport. And there's a lot of people that benefit from wrestling, males right now, that get to have a range of colleges to go to, whether they're the smartest kid in their school, they can go to an Ivy League school and compete at a D1 level. They can go to a military academy and get that aspect of their life. They can go to a community college and still get an associate's degree and still have wrestling be that driving force for them. And that's all we're really looking for within that same aspect, is that same opportunity for women, that we know what sports have brought to our lives, and we just are looking for those same options on all levels. We want to be able to have the smartest girl in the room have the same opportunities to go to that great school and get that education, and be able to benefit to competing in an NAIA or NCAA level D1 competition, or on the opposite side of it, of going to a community college if that is their financial situation and they just want to take the sport recreationally and still enjoy and still benefit from how great in shape it keeps you, how the health and team aspects of it really build. And so it's been exciting, and I think Wrestle Like Girls had a good push along with USA Wrestling to see that equality, and I think it will really help just universities and administrations see that equality piece and not cut programs, and see it as a benefit to keep around, not just adding women's programs, but start adding men's and women's programs together so that we can grow as an entire sport.
Thank you. Next question.
I got one for Corey. Excuse me. In the opening statements, you talked about, you know, one thing I think that's changed in your health is the mental side, and really growing strong in there. And specifically, what kind of are there things you do or techniques, or how has that changed and helped you develop into where you are now?
Anything that makes me happy, basically, or the people that I surround myself with. Any little thing that I can do to it can be even just taking a break from wrestling sometimes, and just focusing on myself as a person, and that can be one thing that helps you grow mentally.
Thank you. One other question?
For Aaron or Adeline, you know, we sort of see on the men's side the younger talent coming up through. You know, Jordan Burroughs, for instance, has had to fight off, you know, Dake and Taylor, and now this year Aymar, and he keeps making teams. And you know, the U.S. has such a lot, so much young talent, but we have that young talent on the women's side too. And now, you know, veterans like Aaron and Adeline, you're going against babies, so to speak. What's that dynamic like as far as, you know, you're the veteran, but you have, is it more entertaining for you to keep it fresh that you have these new opponents? Is it something, you know, where, no, it's not, my time isn't over yet, right? These girls are young and they're good, but it's still my time.
I don't know, I can't speak for Adeline, but I still feel like, you know, we're still in this just as much as we were. We still, you know, we may get bumps and bruises along the way, maybe easier than the younger girls, but we're not planning on going anywhere till, you know, our time is our time, till, you know, that day comes, which that's not going to be anytime soon. But, you know, it's good to see those younger girls come up. You know, we're supposed to. Something would be definitely wrong with our sport if there wasn't a line of girls trying to knock us down. There'd be definitely something wrong. Where things would need to change.
I think for the most part, and something my mom constantly tells me, is that we were those young girls, and so it's always a little bit scary to have that young talent come up, and you know, Aaron and I started making teams at 17, so you call them babies, but they have a couple years of senior experience where I think when Aaron and I stepped on the scene, we weren't quite ready to take those and fill those shoes. You know, I kind of came on the scene the same year that Christy Davis, 9-time world medalist, had an injury, and I kind of fell into the spot, and it happened like that, and I didn't know that I was ready to compete on this level. And I think it's just the difference that when you are at those world championships, you are looking around across a sea of amazing athletes, and you kind of forget that they had to fight through some of that young talent, some of that old talent. You have those people who come out of retirement and try to take your spot out of nowhere. You know, you have kind of like that range on both spectrums, and when you're at the World Championships, you're so focused on winning that title that you forget that each and every single one of those people had to fight through their nationals and their trials. So that process to happen here always is very humbling, because I remember being that young kid who didn't know how athletic I was, and I didn't know that I was ready to beat the best in the world and to go on and to create a legacy within the sport. And so it's just it's a humbling experience for sure, because you see talent and you see tenacity, and you see these young women who've been competing on boys teams that didn't know all of the skill sets and strength that they've kind of developed, and you get to see it sometimes come out in the bright lights and the interviews and those moments when you know the veterans maybe aren't ready for them. So I think it keeps Erin and I on our toes. I think it keeps some of the older women ready to continue to progress. I think it's great to look at international competition, but your competition on home soil is what you have to get through in order to make it to those big stages. And I have some big goals this year of beating some big and powerful women, and have to get my job done this weekend first.
Other questions? I think we've reached a point now where it would be good for us to spend a little one-on-one time with our athletes. We're going to ask any of the media, and maybe if our women could, you know, come up against the wall, or a couple stay up here, and so that we have a little bit of space. If you'd like to speak with any of our 5 athletes here, just come on up, and we'll all kind of share a little one-on-one time. And I do appreciate everyone being here covering wrestling, and we're going to have a fantastic Final X tomorrow night.